Episode 123, The Power of Simple Living. Episode 123, The Power of Simple Living. It's not that long ago, Henry Ford, you guys know who he is. If you don't, he's the one who came out and invented the Model T and cars for everybody to, well, not invented, but got it. I think he had a lot to do with the ingenuity of the motors and things of that nature. But what I want to talk about is the simplicity and genius that came from this man. So basically what he did is he had these motors built for him and they would be sent to his assembly line. They'd be shipped there. Henry Ford said that, found a place rather, that would ship his motors in oak crates. And he insisted that these things were built in oak crates. So basically when these things got there and they assembled the motors and put all the vehicles together, what they did is took those oak boxes and they were designed just perfectly with the dimensions that Henry Ford wanted, and they fit right into as the floorboards of the vehicle. So he was stacking functions, and this is the kind of stuff, this is the kind of ingenuity I want to talk to you guys about today. There's many like him, and a lot of these people came from nothing. A lot of these people were very, very poor. I think Abraham Lincoln, came from a very poor family. There's Hitler, kill everybody. I don't agree with Hitler, with all the things he did, but the man was a genius in a lot of ways. Who can come from nothing as a poor little boy from a poor family and threaten the world and mobilize some crazy ass evil shit? Granted, evil, but he did it. What the fuck? If we can use this ingenuity and learn how to think this way, don't you think life would improve? Don't you think you'd make more money? Everything would, everything would be good. That's what I want to talk to you guys today, so let's get into it. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff. And if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to creating a better life for people and planet, exploring alternatives to the daily grind through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw, and giving you guys a whole entire mouthful just to explain the damn show. Let's get on with it. I'm reporting to you guys live from my F-350 pickup truck. This is my mobile studio on my work commutes. And this is a Potty Mouth podcast, so listeners with angel ears, be aware, be very aware. So, I've heard some stories, I can't remember where these immigrants would come in from other countries and say, I think the story went where there was an uncle or something, and he had some immigrant family overseas, and they found a way, scrapped up some money, and says, we want to come to the Americas, America, where we can live our dreams and live a better life. And they got here, they had fucking nothing. These people slept on the floors of the restaurant. They worked for the uncle, saved every penny they could, and they just built themselves. They even had a kid, I think one of the stories was. They had a child and they just put a crib right there, in the restaurant. Maybe they put him back with the mop, something like where I came from, put him in a bucket, cast him off the side, throw a blanket on him, he'll be just fucking fine. That's why I'm so sweet. No, I wasn't raised that way, but yeah, these people, they made it, man. They came from nothing. They just totaled from simplicity. I grew up in South America and I did a whole thing on it, my life in a third world country. When I was a little kid, I wasn't born and raised there, but I was pretty much raised there for the second half of my childhood. And I experienced people, living on dirt floors, tin huts, thatched roofs. Like, I wouldn't consider that shit crazy. I'd do the same even now. But the point is people who come from these hardships, which I don't think is really that hard, going from sleeping in a hut into a restaurant, that's actually an improvement. But most of us would look, because I think some of us are spoiled and some of us have been raised, we've been pampered, right? And we just don't know any better. But coming from a simple life and having to start from scratch, hard-ass people like this are born, but guess what else comes with it? Hard-ass ideas and very strong motives and a muscle that's able to look and say, hey, I've had to improvise and pivot my entire fucking life. I had to start from scratch, from zero, I mean zero, and build my way up. it gives you the respect for yourself. Is a few things that come on the top of my mind right here, where you know what the flavor is to not have any flavor in your mouth because there's no food to eat. You never want to go back to that, so you never get cocky, really, hopefully, and it teaches you to be humble, and it teaches you respect. But I think that in hard times such as this, I think we're in the 3rd week of October 2020 here, with the whole COVID shit, people like that who come from that background, kind of like myself, we're pretty much not really phased. I mean, it hurts us, it hits us, but we're kind of like, yep, been here before, seen this shit coming, and we've made preparations, and even if we lost everything, had to start from scratch, which I've done in my businesses a few times and earlier in life, you get the feel of it. You got the calluses on your feet to be able to walk the hot fucking road, if that makes sense to you guys. So I feel sorry for a lot of people where everything's been handed to them, and there's stories of these children right now in the late 2020s here to present where they're given everything, and a lot of them are addicted to pills and cocaine. And I've met a few families that way where their children they're ending up on the streets. Some of these fucking homeless people that you guys are looking at on TV and shit like that, just doing drugs in like Los Angeles right now. Some of those kids may be the offspring of well-to-do, rich people. And I've seen it with my own eyes. So they have no respect, they have no foundation, they have no roots and no really operations in their psyche inside of them of, well, how to deal with stuff. Who am I as a person, and like, what am I capable of doing? It's like they never had to really try, right? And I'm not saying beat the shit out of your kids and put them in a fucking mop bucket in the janitor room, but it could help. I'm just kidding. It's just jokes, folks. Don't get angry at me. So yeah, there's a lot, I think, to be learned, and I guess I'm on a fucking rant here of like how to survive recession, and things could go bad. I don't want to make it that way. It's just been what's on my mind lately, and I just try to find subject matter that I'm passionate to talk about. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff with the migrants coming here, and a lot. I've heard stories of them too, where they own several houses and they really built themselves up, as they knew how to save their money. As the rich say, it's not what you make, it's what you spend, and I think these people really got the flavor of it. There's times that, as far as humble, I lived in my truck. Did I have to? No, I did not. I moved to the state of Oregon. Gonna go a little story time here, Mr. Rogers style, rated R, Mr. Rogers style. I moved to the state of Oregon, just get the hell out of California to check it all out and everything, and it was pretty nuts, guys. I went there, I was a contractor, had my contractor's license, everything as I do now, and I had all these tools, man. I had thousands of dollars worth of tools, and I went there just looking for work, to work for somebody. And when we got to the coast of Oregon, Central Coast, I went out knocking on doors, basically driving around the cities all day, looking at construction sites, saying, hey man, I'll work. You guys got any work or anything? I know how to do this, this and that. I'm like, look, there's my truck. I got all my tools and everything in it. I come equipped. I just got turned down one after another. Granted, it was fall, towards the mid-fall is when we moved out there, and I think a lot of things slowed down because of the rain. So a lot of contractors really hustled their ass off all summer, spring, summer, and fall, basically when it's not raining, and then they all sit home when when it is raining and it's cold, which I really did not like. That's kind of why I kind of moved from the state. I enjoy actually where I'm at now, not necessarily the people and everything, but California, Sunnyside, Southern California, by the way. I'm able to take the summertime off and go camping and go to the beach and enjoy myself instead of just working and then sitting in my little kennel while it's freezing cold and snowing outside. But anyhows, I digress. Nobody would hire me. A lot of them gained respect for me because I showed up, which might be helpful to some of you people if you've never done this before, is I just went, hey man, how about I just give you a day for free? Just to show myself, what I can do, and maybe you'll know somebody else. You basically gain people's respect, and it really, really works. It really does. And then they'll talk to somebody and say, "Hey, dude, this motherfucker showed up with tools, truck, everything. Showed up when I asked him to, on time, early. Drinking a cup of coffee, waiting for me to get to the job site. Worked his ass off, and then went home. Didn't ask for a goddamn thing. I think you should hire. This is the dude. Word spreads." It always does. But I didn't get really much at all, so I made a couple phone calls and ended up having to come back to the LA area where I came from. And I had connections out here, and immediately, better than good, sold some really good high-end jobs, ended up making like 70 grand in like a few months, and it was wonderful. I left my girlfriend at the time there and my dog, which I didn't really like. The dog I missed, the girlfriend, kind of okay. But yeah, I came back and really sold a lot of jobs, and I stayed over with some family members, and it just wasn't really, they were inviting, friends and family and stuff, and it just didn't really feel good. So I kind of just went, hey, I kind of want to just go sleep in my truck. I want to be free and do what I want to do, without bothering people, and I've never really done it. So I slept in my truck. It was good, I just had to bother a few friends. I had a couple, I used to hang out with some rough people, so they didn't really think it was weird that I'd show up at their house and take a shower with their water hose, in their backyard. I put on swimming trunks. I wasn't buck naked. I put on some swimming trunks, soap myself up, rinse myself off, and that's a shower. Then I go buy something to eat because I didn't really have a refrigerator at that time. And I'd find a place, usually by these electric power areas where they have a lot of bushes around and a gate, where they go and maintenance stuff. So I'd park there at nighttime, sleep in my truck behind the bushes where nobody could see. Then in the morning, I'd get up and go to work. So it worked out well till one of my friends showed up one night when it was raining and tapped on my windshield with a flashlight. I guess he found me and scared the shit out of me. I will never forget that. I didn't know who the hell it was. I was like, hopefully it's the cops, and in some ways, hopefully it's not. But yeah, looked out the window, came out ready to, had a baseball bat, and I'm like ready to throw down. And it's just my buddy there laughing at me, I think it was somewhere like 4 in the morning or something. And he told me, he goes, well, why don't you go down to the park? You can actually live at the park. There's people that do that for like a month at a time. Then you got to move out for 2 weeks. So I said, well, that's a splendid idea. A lot better than being 6'4", by the way, handicapped, big fat Russian, sleeping in a vehicle in the front seat. Granted, it's a full seat, but still is not comfortable. You wake up with a crooked neck. So I went out, bought myself like a $400 all seasons REI tent. For those of you who don't know, these tents, you can live in this, like sleep in the snow and be snug as a bug. They're very durable. You got to spend the money though. Titanium poles and shit like that. So I was a fancy fucking hobo, man. Fancy as shit. Untouchable. Sexy too, I think. Beard and all. But yeah, so I moved from vehicle to living in a tent. And this is a funny story. So I got all these jobs going on, and I'm in right outside of Los Angeles, about a 45-minute drive, and there's a big old lake with trout in it and everything, and you could have fire pits. There was kind of set the tone here. There's a little laundromat thing there, and there was hot showers. You had to put quarters in them, of course, but in the toilets and everything, a sink outside. And so I kind of looked and said, fuck, I moved to this place, lived in a tent. Winter proved that it was very hard to cook and stuff, and eating fast foods really kind of jumbled my system up, so I figured I need to cook. These places, by the way, too, had electric power and sewage. They're made for RVs, so they had a water faucet, a place to dump your sewer, and also electric, and that really helped out a lot. So what I did is I went and got myself a hot skillet and to cook on. Got myself an ice chest. I wish I would have known then about the solar fridge. That would have been chief. But yeah, I had to buy groceries every 2 days or so, and I'd come home and I got myself a pop-up tent, basically, set it up in this area and made an outdoor kitchen. Went and bought myself a little TV so I could watch the weather for the news and everything, and invited my grandpa over and my buddy, who was one of the people I was staying with. So my grandpa and my buddy come out, and they want to spend the night in camp. So my grandpa comes out, and he's just like me, he loved camping and hunting and fishing and stuff like that. So they came over on the weekend when I wasn't working, and we went fishing, caught some big old trout in the lake over there, and had a bonfire. And next thing I know, my grandfather says, he doesn't ask, mind you, old people, they get the fucking license to do whatever the hell they want, I guess, shit your pants, tell everybody what you're gonna do, what you're not gonna do. You can just be senile. buddy's my grandpa, I had to respect him. So next thing I know, the weekend after, he goes home, cancels out all his stuff, has somebody water his garden, which he's been growing food in his front yard in the middle of Los Angeles for decades. People would always walk their dogs and stuff and stop and just look at his garden. It was really cool. But he had his friends watering his garden and everything. He basically moved in with me. He bought himself a tent and everything. And my grandpa was one of those dudes. He passed away a few years ago. I missed the hell out of him. Interesting of the amount of time, an offshoot here of simple living is how much me and my grandfather connected. We never really connected like that till later on in my life. And my grandfather came more than just my grandpa. I have a problem. I really don't see people as my parents or I see them as my friends, basically. And me and my grandpa would talk shit all day, drink some beer, sometimes a little too much recreational alcohol, and just laugh. And like, we did some crazy stuff, just as crazy as I did with any of my friends. I don't know if anybody's experienced a relationship with their grandfather as I have, and I am very grateful to have stepped up to myself to say that I love you, and to just really ask pertinent questions and gain knowledge and stuff, and do whatever I felt that was in my intuition to do at the time, and just let it all out, man. Just throw the cards across the playing table, you know what I mean? Just slam dunk them, spread them everywhere, and just let the levee spill, and it was very, very worth it. So yeah, my grandfather came and he ended up living with me there full time. I'd get home and he was kind of nice though. He'd be cooking for me and shit. My buddy, he moved in. He bought himself a trailer. So there was a trailer for my grandpa and him to stay in. And I mean, they really went full board. And they'd go home every like 2 weeks to 3 weeks just to check on things and then come back. We had to stay at this park for 30 days was the longest. And you had to move down to this park about a 20-minute drive away and stay there for 2 weeks. And then you get to come back for a month, leave for 2 weeks, and we just did this back and forth for months. There was a time when it was raining so much. It was actually 2005, and people were actually going out of the park. They were warning me, says, you can come camp here, but the dam's ready to break. That was this huge rainstorm. I think it was 2005, and it just flooded. Well, there was another rainstorm that came and flooded out our shit down, our tents and everything, and our kitchen got screwed up. So what we did is got a bunch of pallets, wood pallets, placed them down as a patio, and then bolted the tent to that, because we did have one of our pop-up tents blow over and break. But there was a moment there where we had a heater in there because it was freezing cold. All three of us are sitting there. There was some eggs and chorizo, I think, going, and we're watching the news of the weather. And I looked down, we were hot because we had electric heater in there, and I'm watching water just pouring underneath our feet. And I was just sitting there looking at that moment, and I looked at my grandpa, and he was just smiling. He didn't know what the hell I was thinking. He was just happy and content. And I looked at myself and said, I could live this way. This is not so bad. In fact, being out in the elements, watching my grandfather get a cardboard box, since there's a lot of wind in the area we were at. He got a giant cardboard box and made a horseshoe around himself and then spread it out to stop it from blowing the fire. And he would just sit there with his drink in his hand, holding it with his little cardboard blocker, wind dam, and just looking up at the stars and just watching stuff. And it was very beautiful, I'd have to say. I eventually got my dog back. In the morning, it was a routine where my dog would act like it's gonna kill my friend's dog. They would just do this little fighting thing, then they just run around in circles like mad. And they slept with us in our tents, and it was absolutely, absolutely wonderful. I think Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, if a lot of you haven't heard, is probably a good read for you guys. I just wanted to quote some stuff. This guy basically went and lived in the woods. Some people say that he lived in the woods at his mother's house, but he had people bringing him things and visiting him, and he's a very famous author. And one of the quotes that he said that stuck with me was the paths that we get. So he goes to this lake, right? I think it's Walden Pond or something like that, the name of the book. And what was interesting is he built himself a little wood hut, and he would walk over to get water, and then he'd walk over to go fishing and go, foraging and stuff. And what he noticed is that when you get there, everything's green. There's just all this grass. There's no paths. And then as you start utilizing the area, paths start to form. And he says, how interesting, for a freak probably like me, overthinking things, never stop thinking. He said, notice how I always follow the same paths. Why don't I ever just take different paths? As the paths forge, it's the path of least resistance. You don't have to step over weeds. So you end up just following these same roads, and you get stuck in this rut, in these roads, and you keep doing them and doing them and doing them for many years until you get cemented into never even thinking like, why don't I turn left instead of right? You know? Why don't I try something different? This is the way, this is the only way, it's comfortable. And a lot of people, a lot of millionaires, billionaires are talking right now, saying that you got to get out of your comfort zone. And the more you stay out of your comfort zone and stay inventive, the more money you're going to make. If you're after money, I'm not really after millions and millions of dollars. I wouldn't mind having $1 million. I'd buy myself a big old piece of property, and I would create and show, I would document on how we can all live as human beings to save the fucking planet. What we can do. I would incorporate permaculture and all kinds of things, and I'd probably end up with all kinds of homeless animals, you know, abandoned horses and donkeys and weird shit, you know, it'd be a funny farm. but no, getting out of your comfort zone, pivoting, working out that muscle, and doing things, taking different paths. I've said this on my show before. I think a lot of people were saying, scientists were saying that the familiarity and these paths that we do, notice it goes down in crazy detail. And this is about Alzheimer's disease, where people lose their mind, they can't remember shit because they're too far in their comfort zone. It supposedly is a part of it. It's what people are saying. But what they say is notice that how you always start washing your left shoulder with your right hand. I notice this in myself. I'll always start and do things the same. I get stuck in a routine. When I leave my driveway, it's equally, I can turn left or right. They're both the same distance, but I always turn left because it's familiar. And they were saying to practice different things, start washing your right shoulder with your left hand. Instead of turning left to go to work, turn right. Maybe you might see something new. So you get the gist. I don't need to beat it up. Always transition and try new things, and it opens you up to experience. And it also opens up your brain, I think, and your mindset to if shit does hit the fan, you know how to simplistic live. You're ready to pivot. You're ready to go, basically. You've got that built up in yourself. So I can't help to say that one enough. I think a lot of my motive is I'm just scared so much for people watching them, and I'm like, you better start doing stuff, man. You better start doing stuff if you know, the shit hits the fan, because who knows how this thing could go. But I don't want to get too much in that doom and gloom. What I hoped out of this show is that I inspired you guys, and that you hear the stories of Henry Ford using the crates, specifically designing them mathematically perfect to work as floorboards, to be part of the Model T car. Nothing was wasted for one. Good for the environment. And you know, I want to speak on a positive note. I wrote a podcast. I can't remember an article. I don't think I published it, but it was about this whole COVID thing. This kind of goes into with what I'm saying, I guess, is that I looked and I said, it's before the whole COVID thing even hit, was what is the necessity of having these big old office buildings? Why couldn't people work from home? It would alleviate a lot of traffic. It would alleviate a lot of the smog. People would be happier because they're not doing that commute. I remember living in Los Angeles, as I told you. My commute was sometimes 4 to 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours of total driving. It was horrendous. But I looked and I says, this would be better off for the environment and better for the people. And then we'd be worried, well, if people don't do their job because they're at home and they're fucking off, well, guess what? There's a lot of people you can get replaced very quickly. Get rid of them. Just simply get rid of them and hire the people that do want to work, that are there. And they're finding this out right now in this COVID-19 shutdown, that people are actually operating even better from their homes. But on a money level for the business owner, you got to think about he's paying a janitor. He's paying a landscape guy to come and mow the lawn for that useless fucking grass and shrubs that nobody even utilizes. You know, nothing's edible on it, and then they can spray it with pesticides. You know, then he's got the janitors. You've got the roof leaks. You know, you need some drywall repair. You've got to have all kinds of basic, the maintenance that goes into a building. And the insurances and stuff that go in. I'm like, what if they had just a small little office where everybody worked from the home? How much money would this business actually save and be able to put in their pocket? Meanwhile, stacking functions, as I say on the show all the time, helping the environment, and people are actually happier. The world becomes a better fucking place. I forgot all the details of it, but I see this as a positive, is basically what I'm trying to say, to leave you guys with something good. I see this as a wonderful thing, what's happening. I think this can transform the way we do business, and I think that can clean a lot of areas up. I think a lot of families would be a lot happier, gives you a lot more time. I spoke in one of my shows about time management and you look at that commute that I had, 5 hours is ridiculous for me to be able to, if I was able to work from home. But looking at you guys with, just to give you an example of an hour's round trip from your work, hopefully that's all you're doing, times 5 every day. That's 5 hours that you get of your life every week to do whatever the fuck you want. That's 10 hours. That's 20 hours a month. 20 hours, guys. That's half a work week to do whatever the fuck you want with. Spend time with your family, do nothing, you know? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And if we think about these things, the simplicity of these things, the simpler sometimes it gets, the more the solutions will show themselves. And in part, the simpler you live, the more less distracted you are, and the more you're able to see things and improve them and say, hey, we can change this shit. We can do something for the better. Vote for me as President of the United States. I'll fix all this shit, you know? Just kidding. I would never want that fucking job. That's just insane. But that's the show, guys. So I hope you got some good stuff out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. You can email. Somebody reached out to me and said they wanted me to be on their show. In the description below, guys, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, the podcast, it's all down in the description. If you scroll down, there's the upandinitshow@gmail.com. Send me some comments. Tell me, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, a big fuck you, 2 middle fingers to say you suck. But tell me why so I could fix it. I love all that criticism. I love that there's a loose string in the quilt, and I hate that people. It's a bad word, hate, but I really do. I resent that we disregard those things. And if I suck at something or there's a weakness in something, sooner or later it's going to present itself and it's going to take the whole fucking building down, right? If it's one of those things, the sooner somebody points one of those things out, the sooner that you see that thread and stop quilting the blanket and fix that problem before the whole thing falls apart, the better in my book. Doesn't it make sense? Hello? But yeah, guys, that's the show. I'm going off on another spur. I just love doing this shit. But yeah, you guys can message me. So we got Up and In It on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify, Apple iTunes, and Stitcher, I think. Some people don't want me in there. I'm not sure why. But yeah, and as I always say, guys, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it. And bone it, my friends.